In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to the strategy of turning variables into numbers, probably the most important strategy for the SAT math section. So listen up, and if you want to revisit this episode until you've really got down what's going on, I highly recommend it. Now, turning variables into numbers is going to make many math problems easier. It's not just one or two per test, it's several per section. So you can use this with a lot of frequency. And in addition, the strategy is great because it works for everyone. If you're a total math rock star, it'll make the most difficult questions only moderately difficult. And if you really struggle with math, it'll make the moderately difficult questions sort of easy to medium. So it's helpful across the board. And the strategy has 3 basic steps. First of all, you're going to assign numbers to your variables. So whatever's a variable, you're going to make it a number. Next up, you're going to solve your problem using those numbers that you chose. And then lastly, simply find the answer choice that matches the solution you came up with. Let's look at these 3 steps in lots more detail with tons of examples. So I'm going to show you several examples where we're going to turn variables into numbers. And if you can do these problems using quote-unquote real math, that's great. However, I want you to practice following these steps because you need to get used to them sometimes on easier problems in order to be fluent when you actually have to tackle harder problems. So even if you can do this the right way, I want you to follow along to understand the strategy and be able to apply it. Let's start with this question. The average, or arithmetic mean, of w and x is 6, and the average of y and z is 10. What is the average of w, x, y, and z? So the first step is to turn our variables into numbers. And I should mention that you usually want to avoid the numbers 1 and 2, and you usually want to avoid repeating numbers. So for instance, let's see, w and x. I need to pick 2 values of w and x that I should avoid 1 and 2 if possible, and I shouldn't repeat them. And they need to average to 6. So I can use a wide variety of numbers, but let's try 5 and 7 because I know that 5 and 7 average to 6. And then also, the average of y and z is 10. Yet again, there are tons of numbers I could pick, but I'll keep it simple and say 9 and 11 because those average to 10 too. So I've already finished step 1, which is turning them into numbers, and I'm ready for step 2, solving the equation using the numbers I chose. So the question is, what's the average of w, x, y, and z? So what's the average of w and x and y and z? So I add them all up and divide by 4, because that's what the average is. And a calculator might help, but the answer turns out to be 8. So that's pretty easy. I'm ready for step 3, which is just finding the match. I got 8, C is 8, the answer is C. Let's look at another example. If A, B, C, and D are consecutive even integers, and A is less than B is less than C is less than D, then B plus D is how much greater than A plus C? So I start by turning those variables into numbers, and I have to follow any restrictions in the problem. So I'm told A, B, C, and D are consecutive even integers. That means even integers that go in order, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. And I'm told that A